we'll definitely update all of you. We move on to our second keynote speaker, Professor Dimitrios Buhalis. He is a very, very renowned figure. He is the strategic marketing and management and marketing expert with specialization in information communication technology in the tourism, travel, hospitality, and leisure industries. He is currently the director of e-Tourism Lab and deputy director of the International Center for Tourism and Hospitality Research at Bournemouth University in England. He is the editor-in-chief of the most established journal in tourism, that is Tourism Review. Sir is the third most cited scholar in tourism and first most cited scholar in hospitality with more than 50,000 citations. And he has an impressive H index of 98. His research focuses on real-time and nowness, smart tourism and smart hospitality, social media context and mobile marketing, augmented reality, technology enhanced experience management and personalization, reputation and social media strategies, accessibility and special diet tourism. He's a well-known international speaker and he addresses various conferences of international audience across the globe, and he is a cutting-edge researcher and he has developed many innovations and impactful. His research impacts on global society. To learn more about him, you can refer to his website www.buhalis.com. Over to you, sir. We are very glad that you are here. The dice is now yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction and great pleasure to be with you. It's fantastic to be able to contribute to your conference, and especially India has got a very warm heart in my heart, because obviously you are an incredibly diverse country that you are developing a whole range of new initiatives, and tourism will be one of the critical elements where you're going to be able to create some competitive advantage and take care of your resources and take care of your people. Let me try to share my screen so I can take you through my presentation. Can I confirm how long I have got?
So you have got over an hour with us.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fine. I'll try to keep you entertained for a period of time, and hopefully we'll have some discussion, some questions afterwards. I'll kind of go through a range of different things. Based on the main theme is really about smart tourism, nowness and ambient tourism, and where we are going to the next stage, and how can we actually use tourism as an instrument for regional development and to engage with different players around the world in maximizing the benefits that you can get for your society. So currently, I'm normally in Bournemouth University in England, but currently I spend a year as a visiting professor in the Hong Kong Polytechnic University in the School of Hotel and Tourism Management here. And as colleagues said early on, I'm the editor-in-chief of two things: the Encyclopedia of Tourism Management and Marketing that is coming out this summer. It will be published in 2022, and many people from India have actually contributing to the encyclopedia, and also I'm the editor-in-chief of Tourism Review. Tourism Review is the oldest and the most established journal in tourism. Now we are on our 77th year, so volume 77. I took over in 2016, and since then the journal is doing fantastically well. We're on SSCI. You can see citations increasing very fast. In 2020, we celebrated the 75 years of Tourism Review with 75 seminal papers, and that's why you can see we published more papers in 2020, and you can see what's happening with the citations, and you can see that now we get a site score tracker in 2021 of 7.7. So I know that a lot of colleagues in this conference are talking about tourism, would like to see your paper submitted to Tourism Review. And also the Encyclopedia of Tourism Management and Marketing. This project that started, it's a project of love that started during quarantine in 2021. We're finalizing it slowly. That has got 1,250 articles, and about 750 of those have been edited already, and they are available online. So make sure that your university subscribes to the encyclopedia, so you can have access to all this knowledge that's being contributed by 1,500 people from all over the world, dealing with all kind of different kind of issues that are related on business and management and marketing of tourism and hospitality. And of course, a lot of the things that we're discussing on tourism and hospitality are very easily expandable in a lot of other service industries. So it's not only tourism and hospitality colleagues that they need to be looking into those things. So going back to 2019, we had something that some people were calling over-tourism. I don't subscribe to the word over-tourism. I think it was badly managed tourism, and life was much sweeter for many of us. We could travel, we could go wherever we like to go. And a lot of regions around the world, they are receiving tourists, they were getting a lot of income from tourists, and they were supporting their communities. It was quite interesting to travel around, but quite often you had a lot of these activities engaging with a lot of resources, and some of them, they were not as pleasant as they were designed, partly because the demand was exceeding the capacity, and partly because the demand was kind of creating experiences that they were not as successful as possible. That created a little bit of a backlash, where some of the local people and some of the residents, they were talking about sustainability, and they were talking about how can we manage in a better way. So this was the situation in 2019. We had several people, especially in some places and some regions, some cities, where tourism was not a main income for their region, that they were there was a backlash on the tourism development. But of course, all of these things about how you look at them, and there's a level of subjectivity. And then COVID crisis came along, and it's a crisis unlike any other, because you've all seen all the bad and the sad pictures that we've seen. It's like a war, effectively, where a war is leaving a lot of bad damages behind into places, and a lot of lives have been really disrupted, and a lot of damage has been done globally. I'm currently in Hong Kong. It's a very difficult time to arrive in Hong Kong because the government's quite strict on how many people are coming, what they need to do. You need to do 3 weeks of quarantine. You need to do about 9 to 10 tests. And if you test positive, you need to go to a hospital, and then you need, until you test negative, and then you need to do the quarantine on top of that. So it's quite complicated. Some of the news that you may have watched in the last few days is that the government ordered the killing of all the hamsters and all the small animals, because they're kind of really afraid that some of the small animals are getting the disease spreading around. The impact of that is that all of a sudden we stop flying, we stop moving, and then a lot of governments around the world realize how important tourism is, and how much this activity is actually contributing to their economic prosperity growth globally. Now, tourism has had about 30-40 years of fantastic growth, and we were having more people traveling and contributing to different areas. And even when we had the SARS, or we had the global economic crisis in 2009, the impact was quite manageable. But now in COVID actually stopped a lot of this activity happening. And that affected the entire world. And this is one of the pictures that really comes to my mind. This is from Ubud in Indonesia, where it says no tourists, no food. And many, many different places. I guess some of the areas in India as well, that they are totally depending on international tourism, they've kind of experienced that. Although big countries like India, like China, like the United States, like Brazil, quite often have got a lot of domestic tourism, and that's why they are more resilient as far as this activity is concerned, because they don't rely on international tourists all the time. In other places, didn't manage to survive. This is the Aboriginal Cultural Park in Cairns that had to close because of what was happening. I came up from the beginning and I said, okay, this is a really difficult crisis, and we need humanity, solidarity, leadership, and resilience. Those are the things that we really need to take us to the next stage. And quite often, I'm very proud of the tourism industry, tourism and hospitality, because it after the health professionals, it took quite a lot of pressure to support areas and different people in need. And this is one of the restaurants in London. It's called the Panas Gurkha Restaurants. It's a Nepalese restaurant in London that served more than 100,000 meals to people that they needed support. This is where workers during the pandemic. And that kind of solidarity shows how our industry is so responsible and so engaging with the global problems. Now, enough with the bad things. After any crisis, after any storm, there's a rainbow that's coming out. And I think we need to get out with herd immunity and smart and agile tourism to demonstrate the resilience and make sure that, that our societies are actually taking advantage of what tourism has got to offer. And of course, I said vaccination. Once I've done my vaccines, that's my second one, and that's my third one, which I did in Hong Kong, I was free to go. And of course, Greece is all you want is Greece, and this is the campaign of the Greek National Tourism Organization. I immediately jumped on a plane and I went to some of the nice places. And one of the places I went is Naxos Island. And Naxos Island, something I'd like you to remember, because that is then relating to the encyclopedia. So this was the picture where we closed the encyclopedia. You can see the temple of God Apollo, what we call Portara, that is decorating the cover of the encyclopedia. So I had to go and pay respects to God Apollo and conclude the encyclopedia on location. Now, one of the things that came out when you're looking to all of the different things that we've been dealing with in the last few years is how complicated business ecosystems are in tourism, and how interrelated the entire range of tourism forces and actors are. So we have the tourism system on top of the pyramid here, which is well established in terms of we've got places of origin where people have got different needs, wants, segments. They've got different kind of reasons why they're traveling. And here you've got destination regions where we characterize with the 6 A's, attractions, activities, amenities, accessibility, ancillary service and availability. And we've got small business and governments that they're trying to attract them. So the Indian Tourist Board, you know, the local hotels, the local restaurants, the local transportation companies, tour operators, all of these guys are trying to kind of attract these guys to bring some money into your region. And here you've got the transit region that facilitates that. On the transit region, you've got technology, you've got transportation, you've got accessibility, and you've got distribution. What we're doing when we're doing tourism is really about looking to resources, and we're looking to what can we bring in the system to be transformed through operating the system into value for all the stakeholders that exist. Now, the trick and the difficulty here is that resources are publicly owned quite often, and then value is very personalized. So some people are overusing public resources for personal value, for personal benefit. And I think the very important thing is to create equitable returns for the resources utilized. That is really what the encyclopedia brought out altogether in terms of taking forward fair systems that they are co-creating benefits for the entire ecosystem, business ecosystem that tourism organizations and destinations belong. And then it brought the pyramid, which is, the pyramid is where the tourism system is actually standing. And here you've got a range of different things that you need to have, which is planning, management, and strategy, a very close understanding of the market forces and what is actually driving the market, a very close understanding of exogenous variables and what actually influence the market, and the area where I'm specializing, which is the technology and the infrastructure, where the system is based in managing the entire range of resources. So this is a very comprehensive way of managing the ecosystem that we're calling tourism on a global basis, and making sure that all stakeholders create value out of this process and engage with different players to maximize the value that they are co-creating. Now, once you understand that now we are in 2022, we're in a post-traumatic, actually we're not in the post because we still are in the middle of the COVID crisis. The only thing is that we now have a better understanding on how to manage this crisis. Some countries in Europe, in particular in the US, they learned how to live with COVID. Some countries like India, they're trying to ignore COVID, and Brazil is the same. And then some countries like China are trying to live with no COVID, and they're tracing every single case to actually stop COVID and eliminate any cases. There are three strategies. No matter where you are in the strategy, you've got a society and you've got an economy that's really deeply damaged by COVID. And we need to go in the post-crisis situation, and we need to develop for the future. And I'm putting a line of 2030, and we really need to look into what we're going to be doing in the next couple of years, and then have some middle and longer term kind of strategy to go to 2030. By 2030, we need to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and we all know what those are. And we really need to look into how tourism can be used as an instrument to drive initiatives that we can maximize the benefit of the tourism activity for all the stakeholders that exist in this, from consumers all the way to residents, all the way to people who work in industry, all the way to investors and everybody who is involved in this kind of thing. We need a positive action to reignite tourism, and we need to make sure that we've got the right strategies. And the right strategies are developing competitive advantage and differentiate destinations by developing their reputation and image, nurturing new business models through innovation and investment, and optimizing resources towards benefits for the residents, towards benefits for those people who own these resources. Now, this is the most cited paper in tourism, the marketing of the competitive destination of the future. There's got more than 5,000 citations, because it's provide a framework to actually engage everybody in managing those resources. And it's quite funny because the article is more than 20 years old and it's based on my master's, but it's actually driving destination competitiveness and regional competitiveness on a global basis. We can reignite tourism because a lot of our resources are still there. We've got beautiful regions and assets, and we're blessed with expertise and techniques to support branding and co-creation and bring all of those things forward through co-creation of value, co-creation of experiences. But I think something that's really, really critical and people need to start looking at this is that society is not going to go back. The past almost becomes irrelevant. It's really about how can we go forward rather than look at the mirror and see how we lived in 2019. It's really about how can we look forward and how can we live better in 2022, 23, 25, 2030, and so on. And I think a lot of people, if you really ask a lot of people, they are just dreaming that we're going to go back to 2019. So this is not going to happen. We're going to go forward. And I think we really need to look into some of the strategies to go forward. And I think one of the key elements is the end of planning and the beginning of agility. Because in the past, everybody was kind of doing strategic management to plan for the next year, the next 2 years, and so on. I think now what we need to do is we need to have smart systems that they operate in a very clever way, getting signals from wherever the signals are, and create successful strategies that they take advantage of context and take advantage of what's happening around us. This is what I call nowness, and you'll see that in a minute in a couple of papers I've done. So we need smart tourism to help us restart the tourism and the governance, both at the micro level in the business, but also at the macro level as destinations are concerned, as governments are coming together to actually deal with this challenge. Creativity is about connecting things, and I love what Steve Jobs have done with all of those things. And you can see a very young Buhalis using the very first Apple machine back in 1987, trying to actually bring connectivity. And ever since then, I've been trying to connect the dots and make sure all different people are coming together to achieve what we need to do. Smartness takes advantage of interconnectivity and interoperability of integrated technologies to re-engineer process and data in order to produce innovative services, products, and procedures towards maximizing value for all stakeholders. It's really about re-engineering products, actions, process, and services in real time. I think this is a really critical thing, the real time. By engaging different stakeholders simultaneously to optimize the collective performance and competitiveness and generate agile solutions and value for everybody who is in the value system. Smartness is the glue of interconnected, interoperable, mutually beneficial systems for the entire network to be optimized. And that is different to what business and management has done in the past. We've always looked after one organization. How can I benefit most? Okay, I think what's the fundamental difference we'll have in the future is how can we collectively maximize the value that's being co-created for everybody, and how can we collectively maximize the benefit that society can actually gain out of this activity. That does not apply only to tourism, it applies to anything. But in tourism, you can see it so vividly because you've got so many different partners and different stakeholders that they are co-creating that kind of value. So this is something that we publish in Tourism Review as part of the 75-1 issue that celebrates 75 years of tourism review. Smartness takes advantage of networks and the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything through sensors and beacons, big data analysis, and Web 2, user-generated content, service dominant logic to co-create value for everybody who is involved in this area. Now, when I talk about smartness, a lot of people think that's about technology or information systems or digitization or evolution, social media or reservations. Yes, it has got all of those things, but it's not enough. It's really about interoperable and interconnected networks of mutually beneficial systems that provide real-time, dynamic, and adaptive environments to achieve customized, individualized, and contextualized solutions, and to improve the collective competitiveness and coordination, and to co-create value for the stakeholders. So smartness is much more than those things. And of course, you can see several organizations around the world and several destinations, several cities and places that they are applying these things. So Bordeaux and Valencia were designated the smart tourism cities for the European capital competition, which I'm part of, and I'm judging a lot of applications. And you can see how these cities are actually integrating all their resources in a smart way to ensure that they are supporting their different stakeholders. Now, we've done a lot of research on these things, on how consumers are traveling when they're going different places. And what you see is when a traveler goes around, they have online social contacts and they have face-to-face social contacts. And what we need to do is we need to use systems to facilitate most of them. Now, some of you would have heard about the Metaverse, but this is exactly what Metaverse is trying to achieve. It's trying to help people that they are on a particular place to use online and offline resources to communicate and maximize the benefit of what they're trying to achieve. But when you look at that, there are different typologies of different travelers and different users. And we need to understand where our users are actually belonging and how do they use this technology. Because some people are totally connected and some people are totally disconnected, and some people are on dual zones and some people are diversionary zones. So we need to understand what is the preference and how people operate in their normal life and how people will operate when they travel. Big data is huge on this area, and we need to understand where the big data are coming from, what they're trying to do, and how can we aggregate them in such a way that we can use them effectively to generate value. And I think a lot of people are talking about big data, but they don't really understand how they can use the big data to actually achieve what they need to achieve, and especially the last mile, because they don't know how to operate the big data to create value for it. They just collect data and they're trying to see what's happening. I said earlier about my preoccupation right now is nowness, and how can we actually co-create value in real time? Because I realized that the planning time from 2 years have become 2 weeks. In Hong Kong, it's impossible currently to plan anything. Restaurants, hotels, they're running 6 or 7 different scenarios to see what's going to happen next week and if they're allowed to operate or not operate. So the long-term planning process that we had the luxury to do in the past has become a 2-week or a 2-day planning process. And we need to understand how to operate in the nowness. And the nowness is really about understanding about location. It's about looking to mentions, hashtags, sentiment analysis, trending topics, keyword tracking, and competitors to understand where we are and what do we need to do with these things. And what you have seen in the past is that we've all argued that to achieve competitive advantage, you have either price differentiation or product differentiation. So you're either cheaper or you are very different, and that will give you competitive advantage. My argument is now, nowness is much more important in achieving competitive advantage because it drives instant gratification. It is not, people will not spend awfully lot of time trying to find something extremely different or extremely cheap, but they will actually purchase and engage with something that's easily available to them now. And they will actually use context of what is happening around them to understand what they need and how they can co-create value. So nowness is very, very important. It's normally triggered by a range of different contextual conditions. And then what happens is that we look into what brands would like to, what value brands would like to develop, and what value consumers would like to buy. And then you are looking into contextual relevance, and then you're going into this area, which is data-driven, consumer-centric, experience-enhancing in real time, and co-creating value. So those 5 things are focused on how can we maximize the value of what you need right now. And then we need to look into enablers of real-time service, and we need to define the value that we're trying to attract. To do that, we need Internet of Things and Internet of Everything. And ambient intelligence is bringing us smart systems to everyday life to propel interconnectivity and interoperability. And then what you see incredibly is that all the different networks are coming together to support this. So you've got wireless communication, you've got 5G, increasingly you'll see 6G coming out, and you'll see all the systems coming together. So vehicles, computers, mobiles, wearables, all of these things will get together. And that will create data to develop artificial intelligence solutions and machine learning to support solutions through ambient connectivity by wide area Wi-Fi, 5G, autonomous vehicles, and robotics. All of these technologies are coming forward to support the user to move around in different places. And you'll see ambient intelligence pushing market activities towards smart interconnected environments and marketplaces, because the machine and the operator will understand better your needs than yourself. So if your systems understand what is your physical condition, it will fetch information, it will fetch services to create value for you. So in the past, you'll kind of think, I'm hungry, I need a coffee, or I need to buy a beer. Now, increasingly, wearables will define characteristics about your physical conditions and your emotional condition. So you'll understand whether you're stressed, whether you're relaxed, what kind of needs you'll have. And actually, it will engage with the environment around, understand your patterns. If I'm hungry, I'm buying from 6 restaurants. And then it will work with the 6 restaurants to actually give you choices that can be delivered to you at the time that you need, in a way that you need, and a way that you can engage. All that in real time. So what's happening is that the consumer becomes right in the center of the activity, and you've got a range of different technologies that surround them, like the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, 5G, RFID, mobile devices, smartphones and wearables, apps, cryptocurrency, blockchain, sensors and beacons, pervasive computing, and gamification. And the data that's going to be generated is going to be analyzed dynamically by artificial intelligence and machine learning, and will come forward a solution to meet the needs of individuals in the present time, which has never happened before. Okay. In the past, we'll have business propositions coming to the marketplace, and then consumers buy the package or buy the proposition or not buy the proposition. We've never had the opportunity to actually have dynamic packaging and dynamic propositioning in real time. And I think what COVID has done, actually, it has moved us about 10 years down the digitization process. And it has forced us to operate on a whole range of things digitally. So a lot of people that have never done e-banking, they had to do it e-banking. A lot of people that they had never ordered food on applications, they had to do that. They had to do e-governance, e-tax systems. We're going towards a cashless society. We're going into a whole range of new kind of things that will be propelled by the digitization that COVID forced on us. We never had that before. Okay. Now, the other thing is we are working on crisis management, and we are working on real-time response systems, smart systems that enable governments and different kind of stakeholders to understand what is happening out there and use intelligent systems that are interconnected and interoperable to pick up data very quickly and understand what is the real situation in real time and support different stakeholders in decision making. So this is a paper that we've just published in looking to how can we use smart systems to support different stakeholders to do crisis management and to do the management of their resources by understanding the triggers and understanding what is the most appropriate call for action strategically in order to maximize the resilience of the place. And resilience is something that's happening after the crisis. And what we had in the last 2 years, we had the crisis after crisis after crisis. So in the past, we had, especially in tourism, we had a crisis where something happened, and then we are going to recovery. In the last 2 years, we've got one thing happening after the other, and you've got a continuous crisis for 2 years, where airlines cannot actually see what's happening next. They don't know how much money they need to survive. They don't know what to do with their staff. They've lost a lot of staff. They need to recruit. They need to train a lot of pilots, a lot of people who are crew, and they've got to do a whole range of things. So what we are bringing forward is real-time response based on smart systems that they collect data instantly, they analyze dynamically, and they are supporting organizations to actually make real-time decisions to maximize the objectives and protect the public, and also maximize the value that's being created. Now, another bit of research that we've done is about people with disabilities, and we are looking to how people with disabilities can use this kind of systems to reduce their dependence and to improve their quality of life. And I think a lot of time when you are talking about systems like that, you are talking about with people that they do not have major issues. But if you add the complexity of disability or special needs, that becomes much more complicated. So that's another area that we are looking into research about how we can maximize the benefit and the value, especially for people that they are more vulnerable in situations like that, people with disability that they need more support in order to be able to do things. So my vision for 2030 is about driving intelligence. And intelligence will be about inspiring innovation and inclusiveness and internationalization. I think it will be how can we bring together all these innovative kind of things in inspirational kind of ways and create inclusive societies through internationalization where we are sharing a lot of things. And it's a great pleasure for me to come from England to Hong Kong and now sharing knowledge with you in India, because this is the global society that needs to find global solutions. And we need to look into how can we learn from each other and support each other to go to the next stage. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is robots. And this is a picture I took in 2019 in Hangzhou, where robots were already doing different things. This is the robot in a place called K11 in Hong Kong, where it goes around, it's called RISE, and goes around and disinfect places. And a lot of the robots are going to do a whole range of different things. And when I'm talking about robots, a lot of people are saying, yeah, but actually, would that robot give me a good experience? This is the robot tea servants that they're doing tea. And you can buy tea from them. And then once they have served you tea, they like to show you their appreciation by doing a little dance and tell you how wonderful it was that you got the tea from them. But as I said, smartness is not about technology. This is a note from Hangzhou, from the Blossom Water Museum Hotel some years ago that says, dear Professor Buhalis, now that we know that we'll speak tomorrow, in order to protect your throat, I especially prepare for you a candy. So this is a chambermaid that gave me a candy because she knew that I was speaking on a conference the next day. This is the smartest thing that has ever happened to me. It had no technology, but had a lot of care and a lot of understanding of the needs of the customer. And this is at Hotel Icon that belongs to Hong Kong Polytechnic University, where we work together and we created what makes something different. And we said we love to care and we care to love. And these kind of activities have taken them forward by creating competitive advantage because they understand what customers need. So this was the picture that got the prize for a competition that they did for them, where someone from the concierge desk ran to welcome this boy because it was raining and to protect this boy with an umbrella. Real-time service and value by understanding the customer of the need before even the customer realized that. And I keep saying that our industry and our teams and our people are giving us incredible amount of support, and there are some of the guys next door that they look after me on a daily basis. I know I had to go quickly through a lot of things. I've given you a list of publications, but you can find everything on Google Scholar. And I've given you already a range of publications so you can kind of see things forward. I didn't talk about gamification, which is my latest book. And gamification is one of the techniques that will help us support a lot of those developments and make sure that we operate them to the benefit of all the stakeholders. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Professor Buhalis, for your valuable and interesting insights on global tourism industry and how COVID-19 has impacted the world and tourism sector also across various countries. Also, you shared the vitality of sustainability and tourism and how they need to go hand in hand, and how the future of tourism will change with the smart technologies which companies are using and would use as we go ahead. I'm sure we all have a lot to learn from you. Before we take questions, sir, from you, on behalf of IBS and ICOMBS Core Committee, I would like to thank our Vice Chancellor, Sir Professor J. Mahinda Reddy, Professor Ved Purveshwar, and Professor Shalajan, sir, for joining us for the inaugural. Thanks a lot, sir. You're always a motivation and source of inspiration to all of us here. Now we would open up for questions from all the participants, delegates, and guests for Professor Buhalis. We would love if you can yourself come on the camera and ask the questions. Otherwise, obviously, you can write the questions in the chat and we will take it forward.
So Professor Ankur is having one question, Rishi sir.
Ankur sir, you can go ahead on your own and ask the question.
Okay, good morning to all, and hello to Professor Buhalis. Thank you for a wonderful and insightful talk. Even though I'm not for tourism, but it's still there. I was listening to the talk and I just wanted to know your thoughts on how would technology be kind of, especially to tourism, how would be relating to the SDGs, if you can throw some light more on that. And also, since you've talked about technology and its usage, mostly if you see, I would want to know more about your thoughts on the emerging markets, because most of the time they are kind of handicapped on terms of infrastructure. How would tourism get impacted if they are not ready with the infrastructure? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ankur. I think the first question, technology is look, I'm not a technology individual and scientist. I'm a strategic marketing, strategic management person. I'm just using technology to enable me to achieve my objectives, because technology provides the infrastructure that connects all of us and engage us to take the message out. So when I was working in the hospitality industry in Greece, in hotels, if I want to actually connect with my customers, I had a physical brochure to send to an address, say in Germany or in England or wherever, which will make totally inefficient. People will find this kind of promotional thing and say, I'm not interested, throw it away. And I would have spent already $10, $15 on it. So technology is supporting us to address each element, each SDG by a whole range of different measures. And you need to look into what do you do. So one of them is no hunger. And no hunger means that we provide, and another one is decent work. So by understanding where work is and by providing the right technological tools, we can enable people from all over the world to actually engage in this process and generate sufficient resources for them to kill their hunger. And the beauty of this is that location becomes much less important, because you can be based in India and you can be supporting a hotel that's based in Finland. So technology supports a whole range of different activities that will address different elements of the SDGs. The second question was about, I forgot the second question.
About the infrastructure challenges in the emerging markets and how it can impact you.
I think this is a double whammy in a way, because what you find is that people are using low-level technologies to actually achieve fantastic things. So the fastest growing technology that has been used everywhere is WhatsApp. And you find incredible amount of conversations and sharing of resources, even by officials and governments, based on WhatsApp, which is a very low-level technology, effectively. So what's happening is that you don't necessarily need very high tech in order to do these things. And a lot of the technologies are relatively inexpensive or free. Having said that, networks are important and connectivity is really important. And third world countries will need to invest on this. And they need to develop connectivity in order to be able to connect and engage different things. There's another benefit of developing countries, because they haven't invested so heavily on previous technology. They don't have legacy systems that they need to support. So they quite often move, what they call it, leapfrog, frog leaping to the next stage without necessarily having to go into a lot of things. One of the things in Africa, for example, they don't have fiber optic, but now they're going to microwave technologies to actually connect people wirelessly without having to dig into roads and create all kind of expensive infrastructure, because they're going to the next thing when the next thing is so much more cost efficient. So I hope that this was this answered your question. I'm not sure. There are big challenges, definitely, but that's how I see going forward.
Thank you, Professor Buhalis.
Now we would request Sridham sir to go ahead with his question. Over to you, sir.
Professor Dimitrios, it's a pleasure to have you talk on tourism this morning. And I'm Sridham Soundarajan. I teach marketing and strategy in Department of Marketing Strategy in IBS Hyderabad. My PhD topic was adventure tourism. And my question is, adventure tourism itself is adventurous. And in COVID times, it has become an adventure to go out of the home itself. So how do you see that the element of risk was involved in adventure tourism always, but in COVID times, it's become doubly adventurous? How do you see this industry moving forward?
Thank you. First of all, let me say something to you, because quite often when I'm talking to marketeers, they think that tourism is one strange kind of area and we're not very serious and as far as marketing is concerned. I'll tell you that we are, tourism is the most complicated marketing sector, because you have got customers that they are traveling internationally. They do not know the local location. You do not know them. You may see them only for 3 days. There's multicultural by definition. So in London, I can have a Polish waiter supervised by a Spanish supervisor to serve a Japanese customer in an American company. You can imagine, whatever the marketeers design, what happens on the field is very, very difficult and very different. So tourism is an incredible test bed for marketing. And anything that we do in marketing is much more relevant to tourism, because you are much more aware of customer needs and how they operate, and your customers are so dynamic. Going back to your adventure question, tourism during COVID is a nightmare, and especially international tourism. If you're a big country and if you've got, resources nearby, so from us in Bournemouth, a lot of people from London, the rich south, came to Bournemouth because on the seaside, and they had a fantastic time. And during the periods where restaurants and hotels were open, they had the most fantastic years of their entire career, because what was happening was that people were not traveling outside, and they could increase average room rates, they could increase revenue, they could increase occupancy, they could increase sales dramatically. Now, adventure tourism is quite interesting, because almost by definition, adventure tourism is small scale. And because it's small scale, it's better, it's more appropriate for periods like COVID, because there are smaller groups going. You can do tests to make sure that everybody's safe, but you have got smaller groups, smaller cars, smaller infrastructure that's used, and they're doing, by definition, going to more adventurous places. It's mass tourism that's more complicated. Imagine all these people that are going to a cruise ship, or all these people who are going to Taj Mahal, and everybody gets together, 3,000 people trying to go through this door. This has suffered much more. Adventure tourism, especially going out in the open air and in going to nature, has actually gained dramatically. The question we had in many places around the world was, was there enough infrastructure to actually support the massive growth of adventure tourism that we've seen in the last few years? So, and actually, I think what's going to happen is adventure tourism is going to be one of the winners longer term, because I see that here in Hong Kong, a lot of people are going hiking out on the hills around here, and once you do it 1 or 2 times, you kind of get used to it, you get hooked, you understand the benefits, and it's very likely that you'll continue afterwards.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor.
Now we request Professor Shovik to go ahead.
Good morning to all, and good morning to Professor Buhalis. This is Dr. Shovik from Marketing and Strategy Department, sir. So my question to you is that you are talking quite in the end about organizational resilience, if I'm not wrong. So can you just throw out some light that what are the future opportunities in case of research, if I have to think about organizational resilience, and what are the things that we can do research on in the domain of travel and tourism, sir?
I think you really need to look into this paper that we've just got out, because it's exactly doing this. It is looking into, let me go back. It's exactly doing that. It is looking into how you can have smart and real-time response. And the difference is now, in terms of resilience, is that you can, resilience is about preparing and recovering very quickly, right? So in the past, people will not pay so much attention about being ready, being prepared for a crisis. And then when the crisis happened, the impact of the crisis was much, much higher. And the recovery period started later, and it was not prepared. Those people who were prepared, they kind of hit the crisis almost ready, and they moved on. Now, COVID is the wrong kind of crisis because it takes for a long time and it has not finished. Normally we have a crisis like that, something happened, tsunami, earthquake, fire, volcano, wherever. It happens 3 days, 30 days, then we go to recovery. COVID has actually been with us for 2 years now and keeps going. So it's a really difficult situation. But where the research is very interesting is to look into all the processes and see how can we bring smartness in the processes. How can we understand early warning systems? It's like on earthquakes, the early warning systems of something is happening. And the next thing is, what do we do with this? How can we develop mechanisms that they go automatically into play to support different things? So, for example, do I have a crisis management plan? Do I have a crisis management group of people who know exactly what they're doing? Have we got 2 or 3 different layers of communication? Do we have everybody mobile's number? Do we use different kind of ways of, fixed lines, mobiles, email, WeChat, WhatsApp, whatever, And what do we need to do? Who needs to go where and to do what? And of course, different organizations operate in different ways. And I mean, one of the major problems right now outside tourism, as far as marketing is concerned, is really about logistics and transportation of different products. And it's really about what's going to happen if one route of my products is blocked, the Suez Canal. Can I use different kind of routes? And how can I communicate with my customers? One of the tricks that we're still not very good is not communicating with our customers. So you go onto websites, you see into a lot of different kind of communication channels, and you see paralysis. So if you're a hotel, people would like to know, do you operate? What hygiene systems have you got in place? Can you guarantee their safety, right? And also, they don't only want to know about yourself in tourism, but they would like to know the transportation. How can I reach your hotel safely? And what else is available nearby safely? I guarantee you that if you're looking to any hotels in India, they don't have this information on their website, their Facebook, their Twitter, their Instagram, or whatever they use, right? So these are the areas where we can collaborate and look into how can you develop systems that they are smart, they are resilient, and they are ready to take forward the communication and take advantage of real-time contextual information. Have a look on my webpage on buhalis.com. You'll find a lot of these papers about real-time resilience and real-time value co-creation. And of course, before 2 years, I didn't have to deal with crisis so much because we had a lot of travelers around. It was all about individualization, customization, personalization. It was really, how do I understand your context, Suvik, when you're traveling somewhere with your family or with your mother or with your mates, and why do you travel? Do you travel to play football or rugby or whatever, or do you travel to play with your kids? And actually looking to how the destination and the different facilities were providing a value proposition and a package that met your requirements at each time in real time. That was my focus primarily, smartness within the context. But now with the crisis, smartness within the context means that, do I know which airlines are operating? You know, Hong Kong keep closing routes, and you know, if you are in the US, in the UK, and 8 other places, you cannot fly into the Hong Kong. Right now, there are a lot of people that they are stuck in the US or in London or in different places trying to come in, and they don't know what to do, whether they should go through another route or whether they should wait for those 2 weeks. And so these are the problems that our customers are facing. We've never seen anything like that before. And then there's a marketing paralysis. That's a fantastic area to research. The marketing paralysis that's happening when crisis hits, because people are not prepared for that, because they hadn't had crisis management plans, and they don't understand their customers. And quite often, from a marketing point of view, a lot of people are really afraid of communicating in case they'll make a mistake. And then what happens is customers start dreaming of what's happening in the situation, which is the worst kind of situation, because then they go in all kind of, you've got a total marketing failure because they don't know what's happening, because you didn't tell them. I'll tell you another example. I went to a hotel here and I happened to be there at 3 o'clock. So something that they do here is staycation, right? So at 3 o'clock, there are 150 people trying to check in three desks. So it took them an hour and a half to clear the queue because they had not changed the procedures. And that's a fantastic, good hotel, right? In the past, if they had 150 people arriving, they'll be arriving with different flights. So they'll be arriving from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock the next morning. So three desks were sufficient to actually process this thing, this flow. Now, if you've got staycation, which means that local people are coming, you're looking what time is the check-in time, 3 o'clock, and 150 people arrive to you to check in 3 o'clock. So you create a huge problem and you create a huge customer dissatisfaction. But nobody on marketing actually thought that the process needs to be different. We need to automate the check-in process. We need to stage it. So every 10 minutes you come along. You need to give incentives to people to arrive early or late, or all kinds of managerial things. But marketing is absent because marketing is still very stuck into only doing branding or conceptualizing on doing these things. Guys, we need to be much more dynamic. I think that's the message I'm trying to give you. And tourist marketing is the most exciting area of marketing because your customer is there for 3 weeks, for 2 weeks, for one day, and doesn't know your systems, doesn't know who you are, doesn't know what's your brand. You know, if I take you to Korea, you cannot read anything because you don't read Korean, right? So trying to eat in Korea, it's almost impossible if they don't have English or if you don't have a local guide or whatever. So it's this kind of different mentality of going to what the customer needs and go all the way back, creating the systems and the smartness to actually provide co-creation of value because you understand what the customer needs at that particular moment that the customer needs it, and you do it profitably.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We will have our last question from Professor G.K. Srikanth. We are running late by around 5 minutes. Please go ahead, sir. G.K. Srikanth, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Rishi. Thank you, Professor Rishi. Mr. Buhalis, welcome. This is Professor Srikanth here. Taking on all the concepts and the thoughts which you have shared with all of us. Thank you very much. I just need your parting thought on the last question. I would like to know, with the COVID going to exist as one of the medical diseases we're going to live with, so we are not going to get out of it. Neither the world is ready for that, nor WHO says so. So we're going to live with COVID. So keeping this certainty, what do you think is the future of tourism industry across the world with COVID as a certainty? Point number one. And point number two, any number of vaccinations will never ever remove an anxiety or a fear psychosis among the people to leave their homes, forget about leaving the country. Now, if this is a scenario, do you see a survival of tourism industry and the industry related to tourism, that is food and beverages and other industries, transport, logistics? Do you think we can survive with this situation? And if you think we can survive, what would be your strategies? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is, how long have I got? That's another hour and a half to answer this.
Sir,
because-
you got another 4-5 minutes to answer this question.
No, I'm not gonna use 4 minutes. Okay, but this is really, if I knew this answer, I wouldn't be here. I'll be a millionaire somewhere. Look, if we learn something in the last 2 years, is how desperate people are to travel and how absolutely people miss traveling. And traveling is not only to go out and have fun, but also it's looking after family members, it's health, it's shopping, it's kind of doing a whole array, studying, business travel, conferences, and all the rest of it. So if there's anything that we've learned is that tourism and travel has become totally inelastic. That is something that we didn't appreciate that in the past because we took it for granted, right? You'll jump on a plane. I used to do 200 days around the world. We all took it for granted. I just needed my passport. Sometimes I've traveled with no clothes because someone lost my suitcase somewhere and said, don't worry, I'll get there, I'll find clothes and I'll move on. Now, the more I talk to people, they say, oh my God, my mental health is suffering because I'm not traveling. I haven't seen my loved ones for a long time. And I have to tell you guys, in my case, I had a very tragic situation because both my mother and my sister died and I couldn't go to their funerals. I was stuck out. So I've done 2 funerals of the people I love most on streaming. If anybody understands how important travel is, that will make it home. So that's one thing. The second thing is that the governments realize how important tourism is. Tourism is about 10-12% of the global GDP, but in some places that they are tourism related, it's incredibly important. So imagine the area of Taj Mahal, imagine some of the areas that they are really tourism dependent, a lot of the islands, a lot of the peripheral areas, places like Bali, places like the Greek islands, they are desperate to come back. And guess what? For the first time, and I've been in tourism marketing for 35 years, for the first time ever, governments start listening to us. And they're coming to us and it's on the front of their agenda. And the main thing that really bothers them right now is the airlines, because most of the airlines are bankrupt. Okay, all the airlines around the world are bankrupt. And now the airlines realize, the governments realize that without tourism, there's no airlines, there's no connectivity, the world stops and the economy stops. So what we thought that tourism was a Mickey Mouse industry that people were going around having a little bit of fun, now it becomes much more serious. Okay, so now it's about time to look into these things in a very serious way. Now, investors are nervous around the world, but I think this is where marketing is really, really important in creating smart solutions to actually see us through the crisis. Don't forget, we had 40 years of growing like that. Everybody was enjoying themselves, right? There's food around to all the areas. And most of the tourism areas were the richest areas in their countries. Look at Bali in Indonesia, look at Mallorca in Spain, look at Mykonos in Greece. You know, when you're looking at the tourism areas had a lot of money for 40 years. Now we've got a crisis and we need support from government around the world to be able to sustain the people and sustain the investment so we can go back and co-create value for everybody around. And that is not flexible, I'm afraid, because if we don't manage that, individuals will have a lot of mental health issues, and a lot of regions are going to suffer dramatic economic sequences. And they've managed to survive because they had 40 good years, right? If we are going to get into a situation where we don't have a lifeline and we die, a lot of people will kind of feel that. But actually, there's another thing that COVID has taught us. Two other things.
Rishi?
I think we have lost him, sir. So I think he just completed what he was saying, and I am hopeful that he will be with us soon again. And again, he has one more session to address. I'll just give a vote of thanks to him before we go ahead with the next keynote speaker. So thanks, sir, for a lot of insights that you have shared on the tourism industry, and we all benefit as a citizen, as a scholar, and as a tourist from what all you have shared. Again, to all the participants, delegates, we have him again with us on another session, which is on understanding the editor's perspective, which is scheduled in the later half of the day. Now we welcome.
I'm just back. Hold on. I'm just back for a minute.
Sure, sir. Please go ahead.
Happen with it. So two more things to conclude. One thing is, I was saying that I'd like you to do an exercise. Go back home and look at how many pair of shoes you have got. And see if you really need all this pair of shoes. And see whether the material products that you have got are just cluttering your life or whether you need them. So my thesis is that a lot of material goods that we as marketeers have actually provided people are totally useless for their life. And I think people who are going to go to experiences, because these are the critical things for our life, and now we appreciate them. And the second thing is that technology will enable us to engage in much more efficient ways and reduce some of the inefficient ways, expensive ways, and find different ways of engaging with different things in a sustainable way as well. So I think we've got a lot of challenges in front of us, but I think that is the beauty of what we are here to do. And I think somehow COVID was a slap in the face, and nobody would have wished COVID to happen, but it gives us an opportunity to reflect and actually redesign, re-engineer what we do, and make sure that the tourism marketing is much more human, much more provides solidarity, brings good benefits to everybody, and get value for all the stakeholders. Thank you very much. I think you had double Buhalis today, because you kind of had an on-show, but very much love to be with you. Take good care.
Sure, sir. We'll see you again, sir. Thanks a lot for the wonderful session, sir. Thank you.
Namaste.
Yeah, namaste, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So now we have Professor S. Rustafa Rusli Manesh with us. He's our next keynote speaker. He's an associate professor and director for